Welcome back, everybody. Happy New Year 2026. Everybody, Men Cry in the Car is back. We are back for a new season. We are back for a new year, and we're so excited. And guess what? I get the chance to talk to my brother from another mother. If you don't already, please subscribe to the channel. Please share it. Please leave comments. Just do all the things because we appreciate you. Men Cry in the Car, again, I would just tell you it is a space where men are seen, heard, and supported. Men want to talk, but sometimes they don't feel safe. And sometimes we don't give secure or brave spaces where they can share their feelings. Men Cry in the Car is that place. Share with your brother, share with your dads, moms, wives, sisters, girlfriends. You need to watch it too, but also share with that man that you love. Today, I'm so super duper excited. I get to talk to a brother. I've been knowing this man for 92, 93, since 1993. And we went to our college together in North Carolina. And he's such a dear friend of mine. And I want him to come on and talk about himself. But if you do not know Nakia Douglas and you live in the DFW area, where are you living? Underneath the rock? Because he is everywhere. If you he is like synonymous for education, let me just say that. But don't let me continue to talk to him. I'll talk about him. I'm gonna bring him up so he can introduce himself. Let me bring my brother up. Let's see. Hey Nakia.
Hello, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much. Like, let me tell you something. When I talked to you guys during homecoming and I asked you to do this, and when you said yes, I was so honored. I'm telling y'all, I'm so honored because I love y'all. And then the fact that you believe in what I'm doing, it just means so much. So thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am. My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Yes. So I know when we talked about it, we had kind of like titled it, let me read it. It says, learning and understand and grow in your purpose. But before we get into that, would you please let the people know who Nakia Douglas is, where he came from, whatever you want to share? Because people need to know.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Nakia Douglas. I'm a son of South Dallas. For those that are from this area, the Fair Park area, grew up. Mom raised myself and my younger sister, so single parent household, in the heart of the hood. But she always had dreams, prayers, aspirations and expectations for us to have excellence. So much so, she sacrificed for us to attend private school from kindergarten through eighth grade. And then in high school, I attended Lincoln Humanities Communications Magnet, which is the home school for my portion of the neighborhood of South Dallas. I had a phenomenal experience, not only in my early education years in private school, but then also in high school. So transformative that those seeds were planted early on, not just by my mom, but by those leaders and educators that I was privileged to be a part of. I never understood growing up why my friends in the public school setting weren't having the same experiences that I was having within my school setting there at the private school. And so when I accepted my calling to become a professional educator, I always knew I would offer a private school education at a public school cost. Um, I was a neighborhood kid. I was in all the programs from the Boys Club, the YWCA, the YMCA, the recreation centers, you name it. If there was a program, and specifically a free program, I was going to be a part of it. And there I learned to hear other voices beyond my mother. She was real intentional with regards to knowing who was going to be in our lives, but more importantly, how they were going to be in our lives to fill the gaps for those roles that my father wasn't there to fill. So from football, soccer, karate, gymnastics, summer camps, after school programs, you name it. And then I was also first gen. So in high school, I was in the upper bound programs. All of these programs, along with my mom's expectations, guided me toward understanding and seeing the possibility of me attending college. And so accepted a scholarship to Livingstone College in Salisbury, North Carolina, where I got to meet the Lynn Myers. Um, didn't accepted a scholarship to become a teacher, but I always had a plan of life after becoming an educator. And now I look back 27 years later, I accepted my calling. And when you find your calling, you find your purpose. And when you find your purpose, you don't work. You are just a part of life's journey that God has provided you the opportunity to be a part of.
Mhm.
After going to Livingstone, chose a path of early childhood education. I'm a classically trained early childhood educator. I taught kindergarten, taught that for 2.5 years in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Moved back to Dallas after finding my faith, to come home to take care of my dad that left when I was 4. While taking care of him, taught first and fourth grade back in my old neighborhood of South Dallas. Met my wife, left again. Went to Central Texas, began my administrative career in Georgetown and in Pflugerville, Texas. I was there for 2 years, 1 year respectively each district. Moved back to Dallas, came back this time as an assistant principal in my old neighborhood of South Dallas at Charles Rice Learning Center. I was there for a year, and then at the ripe old age of 29, became a campus principal. My first principalship was at Maynard Jackson Vanguard School, a 4-6 intermediate school. Was the elementary principal for 2 years, and we closed it down, opened it up as an elementary middle school. I became a middle school principal for a year at Maynard Jackson Middle School, and then was asked to go to the high school, which was A. Smith High School. So I looped with my students as the elementary, middle, and high school principal. Was at A. Smith, doing turnaround work for 3 years. Uh,
Mhm.
had a lot of success. Then was asked to start the All Male Leadership Academy, which is now known as the Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy in Dallas, Texas. I was there for 6 years. We did some phenomenal work, but a caveat to that, there's nothing we did at Barack Obama that we weren't doing my last 2 years at A. Smith in regards to single gender classes and the professional development and support for our staff and the community. I was at Barack Obama for 6 years. We did quite well. We earned the Blue Ribbon Award in 5 years, actually, and then became an executive director for the South Oak Cliff Theater Pattern. So literally, I went from being with my peers to actually serving as a supervisor, as the executive director. Supported 12 schools, 6,800 students, and so that was just an expansion of the my leadership capacity and expectations. I was there for a year and a half, then got recruited to higher ed. Started the trio and pre-collegiate programs at UNT Dallas.
Mhm.
Started with 2 programs, and now there are over 6 different programs in that department. I was there for 6 years, and for the last 2 years, I've been recruited to lead nonprofits. Our first Transition Resource Action Center, where we supported young people that were aging out of foster care, dealing with homelessness and or been justice involved. And now for the last year, I've been leading the Dallas Education Collective, where we're looking to transform public education for all students of the greatest needs in the city of Dallas. So a long way to say, I'm still just a kindergarten teacher at heart, but my classroom has gotten larger and been able to serve more students and communities, not only across the city, state, but also the nation.
Mhm. You say that with such humble energy. And I know you are. Like, I know you are. But Nakia, oh my God, like when I talk about you and those that like hear your name, they're like, Nakia Douglas? Oh my God, is that your friend? I was like, yeah, that's my friend. And then just to hear you talk about these things, that's why I say I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of all of us that came out of Livingstone. Um, and I am particularly proud of where you came from. You know, because people like they try to dog South Dallas. They do. They try to like, oh, that place, that. Okay. And there's still some heart there. There's still history there. There's still good things that come out of South Dallas. But knowing where you came from to where you are right now, it is absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you.
Absolutely phenomenal. And I know your mom had a hand in it, but who also had a hand in getting you to the place where you are right now?
Teachers, principals. My fifth grade teacher, Mr. Marvin Shelton, actually had my first sleepover at his house. Um, Most of the families at the private school were from Oak Cliff,
Mhm.
not I won't say South Dallas. We were on the family from South Dallas.
Mhm.
Oak Cliff, Duncanville, DeSoto, the suburbs, Grand Prairie, and
Mhm.
most of them were married, and so I could go over to their kids' houses, but they would never let their kids come to my house. And I remember Mr. Shelton asked me, he was like, if you could have anything, what would you do for your birthday? And I was like, well, I'd just like, sleepover or whatever. And he says,
Mhm.
pick some friends. And I'm like, huh? He said, pick some friends and, y'all can have it at my house. We were Baptists. The school was Seventh-day Adventist. Most of them came from two-parent households. And so when he did that and just kind of took a interest in me and supported me as a student, it changed my life.
Mhm.
And I can remember times when, I hated the uniforms. We wore green pants, gold shirts in elementary school, white shirts in middle school. And I would go to the neighborhood stores and everybody be cracking jokes. And I was like, that's all right. At least I'm learning. Y'all ain't learning nothing.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but there were times where, when I recognized my sister always got new uniforms. My uniforms were always passed down
Yep.
from my mom's beautician's son.
Mhm.
And so there were times when we couldn't pay the tuition. And so I knew everybody in the neighborhood, so I would kind of try to negotiate with my mom, let my younger sister Kariba stay here, and I
Mhm.
can go to neighborhood school. I'll be all right. I know everybody. And she would always say no, and I was like, why not? She said because I know what those schools didn't do for me when I was growing up, and I won't allow the same to happen to you.
Right.
And I took that to heart, but it was hard as a young kid sitting in the office when your mom couldn't pay the tuition, and you're embarrassed. And so, about the last 10 years, some of my former classmates, we've had reunions, and they will always ask, we don't remember you being that bad. Why were you always in the office? And I'd have to tell them, well, my mom couldn't pay the tuition. They're gonna pull me out of class, but the teachers took a liking to me, so
Right.
they would sneak me to work. And I went from being reluctant and embarrassed and not completing assignments to being thankful that people saw that highly of me and thought that highly of me and
Mhm.
completing those assignments. And it just kind of led to uh, my future academic success.
Mhm.
Mr. Shelton, I bring his name up because he was my fifth grade teacher. In middle school, he became the principal of the school.
Mm.
Um, Graduated from Lincoln in high school. He was there at my graduation. When I graduated from Livingstone, he was at my graduation. When I got married, he was there. He's been still to this day, every phase of my life. And so sometimes those teachers and those relationships that you develop with your students, uh,
Mhm.
you may initially think it's just going to be for one season or one moment in time, but that impact allows us that were in need at that time to relish those relationships and continue them on as long as you all are willing to do so.
Mhm.
Miss Dr. Juanita Simmons, she actually, yeah, she's Dr. Juanita
Mhm.
Simmons, high school teacher at Lincoln Humanities Communications Magnet School. I would say 6 degrees of separation. We're all connected. My mom ran a daycare, which is why I wanted to be an early childhood educator when I decided to choose my path. My mom used to babysit her kids. And so in
Mm.
school, she ended up becoming my teacher. And when I tell you, just allowed me to think, dream, and to see beyond my circumstances in South
Mhm.
Dallas, so much so through her program, we traveled to Africa twice. I've been to West Africa, Senegal, Gambia, and Ghana at the ages of 16 and 18. And you talk about transformative for a young man and other students that were still developing their understanding and sense of themselves. It was exactly what we needed in regards to uh, appreciating our circumstances because there are others in the world that have less than us. Secondly, recognizing the power and the purpose within our place, not only in our education then, but also in the future. And then finally, never stopping dreaming because it started off as a conversation of, if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go in the class? And we said, well, our Caucasian brothers and sisters, they go to Europe. Hispanic brothers and sisters, those that are of Mexican descent go to Mexico. We guess we would go to Africa. And she was like, are y'all serious? And one conversation led to another. We organized ourselves, had community support, and we were able to have those transformative experiences. The next voice I'm going to say is Dr. Napoleon B. Lewis, who was the principal at Lincoln High School.
Mhm.
To have a teacher that great, you know that there had to be a leader that great that had those expectations. Dr. Lewis was a father that a lot of us didn't have,
Mhm.
and so there were 1,200 of us at the school at that time, and the way he knew all of us and the way he cared for us, but more importantly, the way he curated a staff that could meet our different needs and had expectations not only of them but also of us, uh, was transformative. uh,
Mhm.
and to see him in the hallways or to hear him get up and speak and know what he expected to see what he had curated for us just made us take a greater sense in the success that we were having not only as a student but also as an entire school. And there was a time when we were performing so well at the school
Mhm.
that the state, I think it was the TOS exam then,
Mhm.
performed so well that the state accused us of cheating, and so they retested us. And Dr. Lewis was like, they don't believe little black and brown kids can do this in this neighborhood. So y'all show them. Matter of fact, y'all show them better than y'all did the first time, and our
Mhm.
score actually went up. And so his belief in us,
Mhm.
uh, with the teachers and with our primarily mothers. So, some of the families had, both parents, but just the love of our family and community just never allowed us to rest on our laurels. So those
Mhm.
are just some of the voices that helped me become who I am from elementary to middle to high school.
Okay. This is going to sound like a very simple question, um, but you had mentors, female and male, and definitely when Mr. Shelton and the other men stepped in. Did you miss your dad at all?
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Okay. Okay.
When you think about, those ages, you know, um, God had a lot to do. At the time, I didn't see God's footprint or
Mhm.
place in my life. And so there was, you know, different men in my lives for different reasons and different seasons.
Mhm.
Uh, but quite naturally, you would always want the love of your father. He helped me come into this world. So why isn't he a part of this world to celebrate these moments with me and or um, just to be accessible?
Mhm.
And the unique part. Uh, and as a kid, I didn't see it as unique. I saw it as a challenging part because it took me a long time to get past hating my dad.
Mhm.
He left when I was 4 years old. My sister was 2 weeks old. And I
Mhm.
remember just like yesterday, he said he was going to get a pack of cigarettes. And I remember looking and thinking, he ain't coming back. And he didn't.
Mhm.
And when you have moments like that are embedded within your mind and just your psyche,
Mhm.
switches are turned on and turned off. And at that time, a switch that turned on, I became a protector. It was an unspoken rule. I was the man of the house. And while my mom and dad never divorced, they were legally separated. And so,
Mhm.
um, that was different. You know, I, my mom didn't bring a lot of men around, but when she would bring, men around or whatever, I was always skeptical. Who are you? Why are you? What are your intentions with my mom? I'm
Mhm.
4 through the age of
Mhm.
18.
Mhm.
Even as an adult, I'm still kind of the same way. Like,
Yeah.
that's my mom, or that's my
Mhm.
even my sister when she got married, and now I have a daughter. I'm still that same way, even though she's
Mhm.
not dating me yet. Um, that protective nature doesn't leave you, and so I'll say at times it kind of robbed me of some of my childhood because I was forced to grow up faster than what I would have expected or what I would have
Mhm.
liked.
Mhm.
But hindsight being 2020, it was part of God's plan for
Mhm.
who He was curating me to become in the future.
Yeah.
And so, as an educator, and as a leader, and now as a husband and a father, I'm still that protector. Um, and so, it's a unique unspoken rites of passage within single parent households that the young men are either going to accept that role or they're going to despise that role and despise those people that aren't present in their lives. And yeah, I went through periods of hating my dad, and then the other cold blooded part, he only stayed 8 blocks away from us. So I may see him once every 3 months. And then
Wow.
when I became of age where, I was with my homeboys and riding my bikes, I knew he lived close, but didn't know how close it was. And one day my mom had called to ask him for some money, and he just went off and like, I ain't got nothing for you and all this. And so just so happened my homeboys came by and was like, we can go ride bikes. So we were riding a bike, and one of the streets was Southland. Uh, Southland had a big hill. And you go down, we kind of raced down that hill.
Mm-hmm.
And going down the hill with my homeboys and everything, and this car back out of the driveway of his home uh, and almost hit us. And the dude get out, get the cursing. And, I look in the car, I see the woman, her kids in the back seat. And I look at the man that's getting out cursing. It was my dad. And, to see my mom crying, knowing, we were calling, asking for something we needed, not something we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that again, that switch went off.
Yeah.
I didn't go there with him. I just got quiet. And then there was a lady sitting on the porch who was my great grandmother. I called her Granny. She looked up, she saw me, and she saw all the, me and my friends, and she was getting on my dad or whatever. And when she recognized it was me, she said, "Baby, come up here and talk to me." And my homeboys, they were kind of looking like, "Who is that?" I'm like, "This is my great grandmother." And I said, "Y'all go ahead. I'll catch up to you."
Mm-hmm.
Sat on the porch, and she was like, "Baby, I'm sorry." She said, "You shouldn't have had to see that." And my defense as a child was always smiling. And so
Yeah.
she and the neighbors would always call me Smiley. And she said, "Baby, you're going to be okay." I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she
Mm-hmm.
said, "No matter what, that's your dad." I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "You sure you're okay?" I said, "Yeah." But again, that switch came on, and I was like, I could care less what happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
fast forward and be home taking care of him after I found my faith again. A lot of my friends that knew my story and how I grew up, they were leery in regards to why
Yeah.
I was doing it because they knew I'm doing three things I said I never do. I said I never move back to Dallas, never get married, and if I stayed in education, be late 40s, early 50s. And they said if you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plan versus his. And when I made the
Yeah.
decision to come back from North Carolina to take care of my dad, uh,
Mm-hmm.
subconsciously, I was coming home to have that father son relationship that I didn't have growing up. But as God would have it, the roles were reversed. And so I came home literally as a parent because
Mm-hmm.
everything he needed to learn from his stroke, I taught as a kindergarten teacher in North Carolina. So I went from a
Mm-hmm.
class of 29 to 1, from a class to 1 to 1,
Mm-hmm.
from hoping and praying that I could gain this wisdom and knowledge and insight from my dad to having to provide the services and support for him. And I don't regret it one bit.
Yeah.
We talk about pain and purpose and being present. The pain became my purpose that I saw it as a point of healing to come home and take care of my dad. But the true purpose was to bring me back home to live a life that God had in store for me that I was literally running from myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. The first thing when you were saying that, what came to me is to be protective of you. I know you are at your big age, you don't need my protection. But because I am who I am, my heart was like, I have to protect my brother. And when you were talking, I saw little Nakia, and then I saw Nakia growing up without a father, and just having that interaction. I was so angry with your dad because I could literally see you, and I felt what you were telling me. And then I said, "Wait, he's okay. He's okay."
Hmm.
Um, what I want to ask with that though, and I can only imagine that being like an imprint in your brain, like you said, like when you saw him leave, like he's not coming back. Being those two imprints or something like this in your mind. I know you mentioned hate. I know you mentioned, like having those feelings. Outside of those, are you able to like pinpoint or give language to other emotions or thoughts that were going on?
Oh yes, ma'am, most definitely. There was a period of time, and I think it became more evident when I was leading the work at Barack Obama. I would
Hmm.
always tell people that whatever fatherhood wounds you're dealing with, they're going to come to the surface, and you're going to have to deal with it, and we're going to deal with it together
Yeah.
as campus.
Yeah.
And I had so many of those wounds that I was suppressing, that I didn't understand until those moments. There would be time every spring and sometimes in the fall with different young men, specifically in that seventh and eighth grade range,
Mhm.
where the teacher's like, I'm doing everything, I can't reach him. And I just tell them, just send him to my office.
Mhm.
And like, we need to get his work. So we tell him, send his work with him. And I'm gonna let him get his work, but I'm gonna talk to him too. And so I bring the young men in, and I just get your work out, we'll talk. I said, matter of fact, and after a while, I'd be like, close your work up. I said, let me finish sending this email. I said, but I know something wrong. What is it? It's nothing. It's nothing. It's nothing. I said, I know what it is. And they were like, what do you mean? I said, you wondering why he ain't here? Why he's not here to celebrate these moments with you. You want to talk to him about certain things, and you're having to talk to your homeboys, or you're uncomfortable talking to your mom about, the changes that are happening in your body. And they
Mhm.
would just break down crying. And simultaneously, about 15, 20 minutes in, they would all ask me, how'd you know?
Mhm.
I'm like, that's the same thing I did when I was your age. Um, so when I talk about your pain becoming your purpose,
Mhm.
that pain that I was going through that time became my purpose, that I could identify within my kids, that I was serving at the school, or I could identify within some of the staff when they would be struggling. And so this story that I'm telling, I shared at the campus all the time. So the kids knew my journey. But there came a point also where, as I was questioning, and coming home to take care of my dad, a big portion of that was guilt as well. So it
Mhm.
wasn't just finding my faith. I felt guilty
Mhm.
for hating this man all these years because
Mhm.
I never asked the question why he left. And it wasn't until my junior year at Livingstone. Uh, some people know this, some people don't. Most the boys know it.
Mhm.
Um, I had I called her my play sister through high school. We met, and I won't say I lived a different life before I am who I am today.
Right.
Uh,
Look,
you know,
didn't we all?
yeah. So she would always call me her big brother, and I was like, and I said, Tanya, why didn't we have a date? And she was like, we couldn't. I'm like, what you mean we couldn't? She said, how do you date your big brother? I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. She says, no. I said, what you mean, no? She said, we've known about you all our lives. I said, what do you mean? I knew she had a younger brother. And she says, we were always raised and knew about you. So what do you mean? She said, you ever wonder how I knew everything about you were in high school? I said, well, I just figured you had a homegirl at Lincoln that was telling you everything.
Mhm.
She said, yeah. She said, but do you ever wonder how we knew everything about your childhood? I was like, that seemed a little awkward to me. I said, but she said, none of your people knew all of that about you. I said,
Mhm.
yeah, you're right. And she said, your birthday's March 21st, right? I said, yeah. She says, mine is March 28th. And you call him Uncle Duck, we call him Daddy. Like, Uncle Duck? I said, I got Uncle Duck. I said, but that would make you my cousin. She said, no, the other Uncle Duck. And long story short,
Yep.
you know, how do you raise a child that's potentially not yours?
Mhm.
And when I tell you I was thrown off, uh, that wasn't a good season for me because my mom, who was the center of my world, uh, you know, you find out there was cracks in the house,
Mhm.
um, stories you hadn't been told, truths that hadn't been confirmed. How do you look at them, or how do you have that conversation? And so pretty much almost, I just so happened it happened right before we were getting to go back for that fall semester. Um, Homeboy Terrence, he's sitting right there listening to this unfold.
Mhm.
And we're driving back to North Carolina, and he didn't know what to say. And so, literally, from Dallas to I think almost to the backside of Mississippi, we just rode and just in silence,
Yep.
and in silence, in regards to speaking to each other, but
Mhm.
just put music on and just driving.
Mhm.
And I remember when he finally asked me, he said, "Man, how you doing?" I was like,
Mhm.
"All right, we'll figure it out." And that's all we ever did with each other as friends and homeboys. If we didn't have answers for each other, we learned to be present.
Yep.
Learn, sometimes the best thing said is nothing until you're ready and prepared to say something.
Mhm.
Even to this day, as you know, men that are 50 plus, uh, we still are going through those firsts together. And sometimes it's
Yep.
present, sometimes it is a meal or a drink, and then sometimes it's
Mhm.
just a phone call or a text message, just checking in because we're still figuring this thing out called life, and specifically from a perspective of, you know, our place within each other's lives as men, as leaders, as husbands, as fathers,
Mhm.
and just existing in this thing called life.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a dark moment.
Yeah.
I made a lot of mistakes that I regretted with young ladies, specifically at that time, because I
Mhm.
think my pain and my disillusionment and anger with my mom reflected the relationships I was able to have and or not maintain during that time.
Mhm.
I was
Mhm.
real distrustful of any and everybody
Yeah.
because I felt like if my mom could do this to me, and come to find out my entire family knew about all of this. So
Mhm.
to my great grandmother and the neighbors and the elders in the community and in my family, could always be like, "Baby, you special."
Yeah.
And like one they used to say it to me so all the time, like, was I adopted? Was I an ugly kid or something?
Right.
What's going on? And
Mhm.
unbeknownst to me, everybody knew the potential that this man may be my dad or that man could be my dad, but
Mhm.
they were so concerned about how the adults saw each other, they didn't think about the child.
Oh God, that's it. That's it. And
Hmm.
oh oh that's it. The reason why I feel like men cry in the car is for that reason.
Right,
Adults are only concerned about adults.
right,
They're only concerned about keeping the secret. They're only concerned about how that other person's going to feel. They're only concerned about like, oh, how I feel, but they don't
right.
ever think about like what is going on with the child, what's
Right.
going on with my child in the home, what's going on with what like whatever. They're only so selfish is the word I'm looking for. Sometimes not knowing they're being selfish, and then other times they think, oh, I'm protecting you. No, you're only thinking about yourself. Because again, if the secret comes out, then what?
Right.
You're just worried about how you're perceived, but you're not worried about what's going to happen to my son, what's happening to my daughter, what's happening with that. So with that situation, how long do you feel like that you held on to emotions that were unhealthy? It can be sad, angry, whatever, guilt. How long did you hold on to that, or have you let that go? Have you
So there are
released it?
stages. So there are stages of grief,
Mm-hmm.
and I was grieving my childhood and the emotions I felt from that situation. Found out everything for a while, um, and so when I went back to school, that was back in the day when we didn't have no cell phones, so we had the phones at the end of the hallway. I can remember my mom would call like 2 and 3 times a week, and I would tell my class, my hallmates and my roommate at the time, I'm busy, and I didn't take any calls from my mom until maybe right after Thanksgiving. And the only reason I did it then was because I knew I was coming home for Christmas, and was trying to see, where she was and everything. And unbeknownst to me, the house that we had, she had lost, and so she had moved in with my grandmother. And again, my family and my dad's family and all the families knew everything except me. And I can remember going to my grandmother's house at Christmas. You know, I'm coming home from college. I'm the first in my family to go to college on my mom's side. They would always tell me how proud they were. When I get to my grandma's house, she's like, "Hey, baby, good to see you. Proud of you and everything." And she see me with my bag and my little suitcase and everything. And she was like, "Where you going?" I said, "I'm gonna go out there and see mom and everything." And she was like, "And where you gonna stay?" I'm like, "Excuse me." She said, "Where you gonna stay?" I said, "I'm gonna stay back there." She said, "We ain't got no more space." I said, "Grandma, ain't no problem." I said, "I'll take a pallet or whatever." And she was
Mhm.
like, "No, baby, we ain't got no more space." And I'm like, "Well, if mama and Kareem were here, I can just stay back there." She was like, "No." And I remember having to humble myself
Mhm.
and call my homeboy, Derek, to come pick me up because we rode back together.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Man, I'm on my way."
Mhm.
Came and got me. And when I get to his house, his mom, his grandparents was like, "What's going on?" I told him, my mom was dealing with, hard times right then and everything. And they were like, just go on in, go to the little room they had upstairs.
Uh-huh.
They gave me a key, and I just told them, thank you. I was like, I'm going to pay y'all for this. And so we did
Mhm.
seasonal work at Greyhound. So I
Mhm.
would work at Greyhound during the day, because I didn't want to be a burden.
Right.
You give me a place to lay my head,
Mhm.
I'm going to go to work. And then when I get back, when I get paid, I'm going to give y'all a little money. We were only home for 2 weeks, but
Mhm.
I worked all the time I could. And then the money I wasn't, they wouldn't take any money, but the money I was making, I was giving to my mom to help her get back on her feet. And so
Yep.
I'll say it kind of accelerated our ability to talk and just kind of move. I won't say move past, but move through um,
Mhm.
the situation. But sometimes now I think about it as you're asking me this question. I think I was working more at that time and then even more eager to go back to school to avoid it. And so sometimes, we compartmentalize and avoid past traumas and pains.
We
And then
do.
it's triggered later on in life. And you're like, man, where did this come from? That's something you locked away. That's something you
Mhm.
hid purposely
Mhm.
to shield yourself from pain because
Mhm.
you saw and felt that nobody else was shielding you from it. And
Yeah.
so my shield becomes protection. My shield was always my smile. And so I could be going through the worst situation and I'm just going to sit there and smile, because I'm looking at these people like, Shh, you don't even understand. You complain about
Mhm. Mhm.
that. No.
Yeah.
And now that I have my own son, now that, I am a husband,
Mhm.
um, I'm conscious of those moments. I'm conscious of, those traumas. And, I am tough on my son because I want him to be prepared. I don't want him to necessarily have to figure it out with his homeboys and things of that nature when
Yeah.
you got both your parents, specifically, you got your dad that can kind of help you navigate through some things.
There you go.
They're going through their own, metamorphosis and growth as kids because, they're not our biological kids.
Mhm.
So, we have always been open, transparent with them. They know we love them, but then they also are aware of they have a heritage beyond our family. And so
Mhm.
they're ready to seek it out. We're going to go through that journey with them together. But I've made sure I've been transparent and that we've been transparent with them throughout the entire process because I never want them to feel the pain that I felt as a kid.
Oh, for sure. For sure. You were an excellent father, by the way. Now I don't know if you were an excellent husband, I was playing, but you are.
It's work.
You are.
It is truly
It
work.
truly is. It truly is. And then because I knew a lot of that, and then of course, some I didn't know. But I knew that when you became a father, that you would be the father that you didn't have, or also not make the mistakes that your bio dad did. Most of all, you're present with your son. I see that. Like when I see y'all together, and I'm just like, oh yeah, Nakia is a good dad. And like you said, when you go through stuff, you don't understand the reason why you got to go through it or why you're going through it. But then you like it sets you up for who you are today. Every single thing that you went through in your life set you up for who you are today. Had you missed one thing or not gone through any of that, you wouldn't be here in this position. Physically, mentally, none of that. You would not be where you are today. because you wouldn't have been prepared for it. Now it feels uncomfortable. It doesn't feel fair when we're going through it. But when you look at where you are, Nakia, like I get so proud. I'm like I had a hand in it. I have no hand in it, but I get so proud when I look at you. I'm like, I know a lot of his story, and you're able to just pour back into your students, men that come your way from all different ages. I see you. You know, like when people say, "I see you." No, I really look at you.
Thank you.
I really look at you, and I'm just like, not one time, if he was bitter, if he was distraught, if he was whatever, did he bleed on anybody else?
Mm,
I don't ever see that. I see love every single time I see an interaction with you, with your friends, well, with our friends, with your brothers, with your son, with your student. That's all I see. And I commend you, sir.
thank
I
you.
commend you because so many people, as they say, hurt people will hurt people. I see that. And not one time did you allow this experience or these experiences make you a better person, make you like, I didn't see that. And I absolutely love this story. I don't know if you wrote a book, but maybe that's something in the works. Maybe that's something in the works. But I think about, like, I go back to the title, it says learning and understand and grow in your purpose. You have done that. Oh my God, have you done that? And let me say this just entered my mind right now. You remember when you said, "May God laugh, tell him your plans," because I've heard that multiple times. But absolutely, Nakia, where I see you, you are the executive director. I know that. It seems like every time I see you, you are in position, you are in leadership. You haven't even touched. You haven't even. This is not even the surface. And you've been in education for a very long time, but you have not even gone beyond where you're supposed to go. And
Yes,
I don't know
ma'am.
if you know that, and I don't know if you feel that, but you have yet to see where you were supposed to go. And that is the reason for all this pain, hurt, all that. That was the reason, because the preparation is real. Pruning is real. Cutting off is real. All these things are real. And in order for you to lead or to guide in the way, these things are to happen for you, not to you.
Right, right.
So I thank you. I thank you.
I received that um,
And I
because
want you to.
even at this moment, I lost one of my mentors while we were out for the break, actually.
Hmm.
And so when we weren't able to connect,
Hmm.
that last time when I asked you to reschedule, is because I was dealing with the grief of his transition
Yeah.
from 2004 uh, up until this year, well, 2025. Brother YL Ling had been in every capacity of my leadership when I became
Hmm.
a campus principal.
Hmm.
Maynard Jackson, the Maynard Jackson Middle,
Hmm. Hmm.
A. Maceo, Barack Obama, feeder pattern, UNT Dallas, track, and now even at Dick. And it was hard. The relationship, which started off as service and support of each other as brothers in this work, uh, was different. You heard me say YL. His name is Juan Leon Ling. He's Taiwanese,
Hmm.
Buddhist,
Hmm.
Black,
Hmm.
Baptist. And so technically our worlds should have never crossed. But when spirits are meant to be together and to join for a purpose that serves humanity and is spiritually engaged, it just happens. And it was a beautiful relationship that transformed from serving and supporting kids to, me recognizing now that he was also a mentor and a part of my continued growth and development as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a leader. And that was my man. Um, so much so, when we adopted Zaire and Samaya, they all they know as granddaddy is Brother YL and Sister May as grandma. Um, it hurt in ways that I hadn't expected. Um, but to be reflective over how God's plan at that moment for this man to come in
Mhm.
to my life as a campus principal at the ripe old age of 29. So when I talk about first becoming a principal, that's how long you should envision YL has been a part of my life.
Mhm.
And he just saw me as, I laugh about it, he saw me as a young administrator, but I think, he may have seen me as that little kid that had needs, and it was his season to kind of guide me through life. And that's exactly what he did. No different than the Mr. Sheltons, the Dr. Simmons,
Mhm.
Dr. Lewis's, Mr. Fleming, Miss Kennard's,
Mhm.
all those people that were placed in my life at different seasons. And, again, when you are that protector, when you find someone that can protect you and help you, you tend to hold on tighter.
You
You
do.
tend to make those relationships strong as much as possible and that it be reciprocal. And to hear his family and friends around him talk to me afterwards like, oh, we never met you, but we knew about you. Oh, you were
Mm.
his son, and his son and daughter was like, yeah, you're the good brother. You're the one that would show up to stuff, and we wouldn't. It it brought us so many emotions
Yeah.
that it was hard. I'm not gonna lie, it was hard because this is. I said we don't get to choose our family, but we get to choose our friends.
Mhm.
I saw him as my godfather.
Mhm.
This was a godfather that wasn't ordained through my parents. This was a godfather that was ordained through God.
Mhm.
And so, regardless of religion, regardless of race and background, it was that connection that happened for us.
Yeah.
I've been so blessed to have relationships formed like this um, that have helped me personally, but also allowed me and helped me professionally as well.
Yeah. And I did not know you were going through that. I
Again,
knew it had to be something. I knew it had to be something. And then let me get on you just for a second. You could at least told me because when I was having my day, you called and you checked on me and you were there for me. And so I understand how men get. I know how y'all get. But I would have liked to just like give some reciprocity in that as well. And that's okay. I forgive you. But I do like my condolences because when someone has been in your life that long,
hmm
who and in that way, and I'm so sorry you lost him.
and
And
that and that's
and
what, hmm
and I'm excited that you had that experience in those years with him.
right, right.
Yeah.
That protector in me
Hmm.
sometimes doesn't allow me to be the greatest recipient of support
Yeah. I know.
because I'm like I don't want to be a burden on nobody else.
Hmm.
It's okay for me to accept other people's burdens, but it is sometimes it's not okay for me to feel comfortable
Hmm.
sharing my pain or my
Yeah.
burdens with others.
Yeah.
But as I've learned to heal, whether it's talking about this, whether it's talking about, you know, adoption and or
Yeah.
with infertility or just
Hmm.
loss in life, um, you know when to share and when not to share,
Yeah.
or at least what you perceive is the best time to do so.
Yeah. I like that better
Mm.
because I am your sister for real.
Yes, ma'am.
And you
Yes,
better not ever keep anything from me again. No, seriously. But at any time, I would love for you to be able to receive support from me as well.
yes,
And
ma'am.
that's what this is all about. To create the podcast, it was birthed out of my husband losing his brother. And,
Hmm.
and he and I had a conversation. And as he's talking to me, God is saying, you're going to do a podcast. And God is telling me the title of the podcast. And my husband is saying the same thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting overwhelmed because you're saying what God just told me. And so to be assigned to this platform,
Right.
to be assigned for this purpose, like I can't even think of the word. And sometimes I feel honored, but I'm like, that's not even big enough for what you got me doing, Lord, because men trust me.
Right. Right.
And a lot of times, They don't feel safe with their own wives or their own sisters or moms, and the fact that God has used me for men to literally come into my office, because this has happened multiple times, or if I'm counseling them and we're doing a virtual session, they say, Lynn, you're the only woman I've cried in front of,
Hmm.
or you're the only woman I feel safe with. And I'm like, oh, thank you. But let's get you to the place where you can share, with others. So
Hmm.
I really do thank you for sharing so in a manner of transparency, vulnerability. I hope you feel comfortable talking and sharing this because so many people need to see it.
Right.
And who needs to see it at that appointed time will definitely see this for sure.
Right.
I thank you for being who you are as my friend. I thank you for being who you are to your wife because I know you are a good husband, even though you did not see that as an example from your father.
Right.
You allowed that other men to come in and shape what a man can be, is supposed to be, who he is. And that's the beautiful part. That's the beautiful part that you allow these other men to come in. And so I would say this. Um, what do you think is the biggest responsibility that you have for your son or over your son?
Being remaining prayerful, uh, being present, and building purposeful memories, um,
Mhm,
and teaching him the expectations um, that we have, that he should have for himself. Because we explain to them, as long as God is happy,
mhm,
mom and dad will be all right.
mhm,
And because we have our own ways, and we want to make sure that that he knows, and my daughter knows that they're following the path that they've been called to. And so, making sure that he has a good sense of who he is,
mhm,
whose he is,
mhm,
and you know that's that beautiful part.
mhm,
When I talk about transparency, I remember one day that I get to take them to school every day. So again, when God knew how divinely He was orchestrating everything,
mhm,
my wife and I went through a season where we lost two sets of twins,
mhm,
and I was also at the hospital at MCL Smith at the time.
mhm,
One of my best friends that came to one of the services, the last one specifically,
mhm,
he told me he loved me like about 7 times. And I was like, man, what's going on? Something you tell me? And he was like, I hope you take this the right way. And I was like, what? And we're at the gravesite, so I didn't know where he was going with it. So I
mhm,
tensed up, and he says, maybe God knows you the way I know you. And my friend Broderick, we literally have known each other since third grade. And we would always talk about when I get older, I give up everything for my kids. I just do this, I do this. And he literally told me on the side at the gravesite that day, maybe God didn't give you kids at this time because He has some work for you to do. When you burying your kids and you standing right there,
mhm.
it took a whole lot for me to not have moment, a situation with him right then.
Yeah.
But it also, I recognized at that moment, it took a whole lot for him to have the courage and faith to be able to say that to me.
Mhm,
I said that to say,
mhm,
um, for 6 months after that, that's when I was appointed the principal of Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy. Um,
yep,
that that was December of that happened when we lost our last kids. 19. Ooh, Lord, I'm saying 19. Lord, I'm getting old. 2009, 2010. So that was, yeah, that 2009, that fall. Um, for 7 years afterwards, the grieving process was terrible. And so when I think about the title of your podcast, "Me and Crying in the Car," I was that protector. I won't say I was stoic with my wife, but I walked into settings in the hospital and in doctor's office where my wife is crying uncontrollably. My mother, my in-laws are crying, and I always felt like I had to be the protector. And so I wouldn't
mhm,
cry
mhm,
in front of them.
mhm,
I would cry in the hallway. I would cry in the car. I would cry at home when nobody was around. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until August of 2015 that, that protected me whenever a child was being born. I talk about 7 years of grief. When the child was being born or anything on TV, I changed the channel. And I would go to ESPN. My wife was like, "We've been married so long. Why do you do that?" I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "You always flip it to ESPN when somebody's about to give birth." At that moment, we never talked about it.
Mhm.
Every baby shower, every christening and all of that, I always attended because I knew you weren't ready. And it hurt me how hurt you were, but it also hurt me when I saw our family and extended members have a hard time with how to approach us and stuff. I was like, and so I cried in the car, I cried in the hallway, I cried at home. And at that moment, we shared a tear together. This was August
Mhm.
15. After we finished crying, she was like, "I never thought you felt that." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I never saw you cry." I said, "I just handled my pain differently." I felt like I had to be strong. I felt like I had to smile to get you through those emotions.
Yeah.
And so I buried mine. But it was at that moment when we shared tears, she said, "I'm ready." I said, "Are you ready for what?" She said, "I think I'm ready, for, let's consider adoption or, foster or whatever." And you know me, I said, "Well, I know a guy." And she's like, "You always know somebody." I said, "Well, no, I met this pastor, and he has a ministry at this church with the boys from Obama, and said they have a foster to adoption ministry." And I took his card, and I called him, uh, set up to meet Pastor Blake at Arrow, which was, the agency that supported his church's ministry. We get there, and as we're walking up for our appointment, the people at the agency says, "Can we help you?" I said, "We're here for a meeting with Pastor Blake." And they were like, "Pastor Blake? We don't know Pastor Blake." I said, "Well, he gave me this card. He told us to meet him here." And when he walks in, I said, "That's him right there." And they just started looking. They looked at me and they were like, "Do you know who that is?" I said, "Yeah, that's Pastor Blake." They're like, "No, that's Bishop Blake, and we've never seen this before." My wife and I had that conversation when we cried that August, that September.
Mhm.
We started our classes to become foster to adoption parents. That December of 2015, Zion Zamani moved into our house. And then that May of 2016, we finalized their adoption. Also, during that time was when I was transitioning away from Barack Obama, going into further leadership roles that
Mhm.
gave me more responsibility, yet more flexibility to be present as a father. And so I go back to what Roger said to me
Yeah.
then. Mr. God knew me so good that I would have messed up his plans for my
Mhm.
life,
Mhm.
support these young men, support those different students and faculty and staff members during that season of my life. But when he knew I was ready and that season to come to an end, he was going to give us our prayers. And that's what Zion and Zamaya represent. Um, the end of grief and the answering of prayers. And
Mhm.
so the beauty of them, they asked me, about their names, which is where I started the story. They said, "Daddy, you got a funny, creative name. Did you come up with our names?" I said, "No, I didn't." I said, they're like, "What?" I said, "Y'all got the best of three worlds." And they're like, "What's that?" I said, "Your names are your birth names. Those are your given names that your parents gave you, your earthly parents gave you. Your middle names, we created those because, the middle names were a little different. They didn't match." And then our last name, that's the name that God gave us collectively as a family. So y'all got the best of three worlds. And so I'd like to say that, in life, we may not understand all the different challenges,
Yeah.
struggles, and, obstacles we have to overcome. But there's an intentionality in regards to understanding the three phases of life that we may be in and how
Mhm.
to play a part in the plan that God has for us.
Yeah.
29:11 was a scripture that I received on some of my darkest times that
Mhm.
remind me of the plan that God has for my life, plans to uh, provide us peace and not to harm us, and
Mhm.
understanding and that peace that comes from recognizing now, being able to look back over my life experiences, that it all had the pain had a purpose, and the purpose was a part of the plan.
Mic drop. I feel like if we all could understand that, because as long as we're here, we do have purpose, but allowing God to give us that purpose and us being obedient to it without asking questions, then that's where we'll find the alignment.
Yes, ma'am.
Nakia, you are so special to me. I want you to know that. I absolutely want you to know that. Don't even want to end this, but I know our time is drawing near. I do want to say this, and I say this often, but I definitely want to say it to you. For that young man, or for that wife, or for whomever that sees this, but definitely to that young man, um, that child, the boy child, or that to that adult man, what would you say to him that you feel like he needs to hear in this moment?
Know that nothing happens in life by accident. Um, Everything has a reason in our lives, good, bad, and indifferent. Um, Seek the wisdom and discernment to understand not only that moment, but more importantly, how that moment is going to impact you in the future. Um, and embrace it. Um, and I used to say my smile was my shield, but actually, I think my smile subconsciously was how God allowed me to be present in the moment, no matter how hurtful or painful it was, looking for the lesson out of it. Wondering, now my kids and I have a saying, the struggle make you strong. So I get excited when I'm dealing with different challenges in life. I get excited when, my kids are going through different challenges, and the protector in me wants to jump in and just fix it, whether it's in my family life and or in my professional life. But the spiritual side of me is like, man, if you only knew, it's a blessing on the other side of what you're going through. So just be present during the moment and find out what God has in store for you. Find out what God has in store for you in those moments, and don't run from the challenges. As much as we say, I want all good vibes around me, and uh, yeah, that's cool. But if everything good, you're gonna get complacent and you will not fulfill your destiny. If I had not gone through what I had to do, I would not be the person I am today. So you have to understand what you go through is preparing you for something that you can't even imagine. Who would have ever thought that a little kid from South Dallas, single parent household, uh, in the hood, didn't have a lot of money, and or was just a small little beginning dreamer, would have done and been able to live the life that I've been privileged to live. So it went beyond just the prayers and understanding. It went into the work that had to be done. It went into the acceptance of the challenges and not resting on my laurels and not resting on the prayers that were sent up and the expectations were sent up, but acting on them and now creating a generation of new leaders within my family, within my son and daughter, within the students that I've been privileged to serve and the community I've been privileged to serve. My eye doctor is one of my former students. Uh, One of the lead nurses at my doctor's office is one of my former students. I go into community meetings and I'm collaborating with former students. I have students that are architects now that are going to help me design future schools and opportunities. I have former staff members that are assistant soups, executive directors, principals, EDs of nonprofits that I work with and or interact with. And so my greatest joy now is witnessing the fruits of labor, but also witnessing how in pouring into others, those same people and others are pouring into my kids. So they're able to fill those gaps the same way somebody filled the gaps for my mom with me and my sister. Now those gaps are being filled with my son and my daughter. And so that saying that to them whom much is given, much is required is so true. A lot has been given to us all, and much is required of us to give back and help the next generation and become that bridge to help those who need us, to be able to become for people what we needed when we were young. Our biggest blessing is to be able to fill the gaps for those people to become what we needed for someone else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I really
Yes, ma'am.
appreciate you. I know we've been trying to get this on the books for a while, and life happens, and we did it. And I'm so glad it was today
Yes, ma'am.
because I needed those words.
Yes, ma'am.
I need that encouragement. I needed all of that that you just gave. So anyway, is there anything anything else you want to say? Like, do you guys have any events coming up that we can support? Anything you want to share with us on that end?
We're actually working on some calendar events for later on this spring. So I will follow back up with you, and hopefully you'll be willing to share with your listeners and followers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as an educator, it's just going to come out of me. Parents are your children's first teachers. So make sure that you are present and accounted for, and that you have a voice in their lives. Parents, you are parents, not friends. And so that does require you having tough conversations, real conversations, and honest conversations with your kids, not just about their futures, but also about their now. And knowing how to be present. Spouses, husbands, love your wives, be present for your wives the same way you're present for your kids. And even if you are not married to, your children's mothers or fathers, make sure you are still present in the lives of those kids, because those kids and asked to come into this world. They're a byproduct of the love and affection that you all may have had for each other at one time or another. And so, although you may not be together now, does not mean you cannot be
Mm-hmm.
together in the life of your kids.
Mm-hmm.
So respect each other, and then as leaders, make sure you are taking care of yourselves, both professionally and personally. Making sure that you're filling, your cup the same way you're filling other people's cups. And then as a society, love overcomes all, and there's a lot that is dividing us, but we share more in common in our differences than what we think and can imagine. And so, if a 29-year-old African American Baptist can
Mm-hmm.
become friends uh, with a seasoned Taiwanese Buddhist uh, that transform from service to of others to service of each other,
Mm-hmm.
we all can do the same. And so, don't allow our differences to stop us to find our unique commonalities as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, I'm going to end the show, but I don't want you to leave. I'm going to take you down, and I want to talk to you after, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much, Nakia. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Everybody, it's been another great episode of Men Cry in the Car. I don't even know what to say except for you already know. Men, I see you, I hear you, and I support you. Until next time, bye for now.